Hello there, everyone. This is a brand new series where we are going to be looking at some of our favorite books from Disney Editions. Now, if you don't know about Disney Editions, they are a book publisher that focuses on bringing classic literature and popular culture together with beloved Disney characters and stories. The outside of the box is covered in a beautiful foiled design with Sleeping Beauty Castle in the center. Opening up the box, you can see that the book is wrapped in a dust jacket with the same design. It talks about how Disneyland came to be and all of the inspiration that went into making this magical place. We get to hear from Walt himself about how he wanted a place where parents and children could have fun together, and how he had always dreamed of building a theme park ever since he was a young boy. We learn how Adventureland was inspired by some of Walt's travels in the South Pacific. We learn about how Fantasyland was designed to capture the whimsy and magic of the early Disney animated films, and how each attraction pays homage to these beloved stories. We learn about how Walt wanted to create a world of tomorrow that was full of excitement and adventure, a place where anything was possible. We learn about how the park has evolved over the years, and how new attractions and lands have been added to keep the park fresh and exciting for guests of all ages. The book also includes a bibliography for those who want to learn more about the history of Disneyland and a collection of Walt Disney quotes about the importance of imagination and creativity. Overall, this is a wonderful retrospective on the history of Disneyland and the Imagineers who brought it to life. It is a must-read for any Disney fan or anyone who wants to learn more about the history of theme parks. The book is beautifully illustrated with tons of concept art and behind-the-scenes photos that give you a glimpse at how these magical lands were brought to life. If you are a fan of Disney theme parks, I highly recommend checking out this book. It is a wonderful way to support Disney Editions and the many talented artists and writers who worked on this project. You can pick up your copy today from the link provided below. I thought it was interesting to read about how the different lands were able to stay true Walt's original vision while still incorporating new technology and storytelling techniques. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Also, if there are any other books from Disney Editions that you would like us to cover in this series, please let me know in the comments. I will see you all next time. For example, when New Orleans Square was added to the park, it was important to the Imagineers that it felt like it had always been a part of the park. To do this, they used old photographs and architectural drawings of New Orleans to create a land that was both authentic and immersive. I really enjoyed reading about the different production models that were built for some of the land's attractions, such as Space Mountain, and how the Imagineers had to experiment with different designs before settling on the final product. I also thought it was fascinating to learn about how some of the attractions were sponsored by different companies, such as IBM, and how this helped to fund some of the land's most ambitious projects. I love the section that talks about the design of Snow White's in Wish and how the Imagineers were able to incorporate the original diamond from the Evil Queen's apron to the attraction Wishing Well. We also learn about how some of the audio animatronic figures were designed and how they were able to make the seven dwarfs look so lifelike. There is also a small section dedicated to the wonderful music that plays throughout the land and how the songs were carefully selected to set the mood for each area, and how he wanted to create a land that would transport guests to a far-off jungle or island paradise. As we flip through the pages, we get to see how the Society of Explorers and Adventurers was created to tie the different attractions within the land together, and how this group of adventurers became a prominent part of the land's lore. I also love learning about the different cultures that inspired some of the architecture and iconography found throughout the land, such as the temple ruins that surround the entrance to the Enchanted Tiki Room. This section also goes into great detail about the construction of the Jungle Cruise and how Walt worked closely with the crew to make sure that everything was perfect for guests before opening day. Throughout the book, there are plenty of behind-the-scenes photos and concept art that give us a glimpse at how these magical lands were brought to life. There are even a few photos that show some of the real-life inspirations for some of the different areas of the park. Taking off the dust jacket reveals a hardcover with embossed details and a textured finish. We learn more about how Walt and his team of Imagineers designed the layout of the park and all of the different rides and attractions that would become some of the park's most iconic landmarks. Walt wanted to use real actors to voice the birds, and that meant holding auditions to find the perfect cast. Reading through this section made me appreciate all of the talent that goes into creating these audio animatronic performances. Because just like any other performance, you need the right people in the roles, or else it just doesn't come to life the way that Walt envisioned. I love learning about some of the different production models that were built for some of the rides, such as the Utopia, and how some of the rides were inspired by other amusement parks that Walt visited throughout his life. One of my favorite sections of this book is when it talks about the Enchanted Tiki Room, and how it revolutionized the way animatronics were used in theme parks. Up until this point, animatronics had mostly been used for dark rides or other attractions, where the guest was moving through a scene with the animatronic figures placed throughout the ride. But with the Enchanted Tiki Room, Walt decided to break away from this format and have the animatronics perform instead. This allowed the guests to sit back and watch the show instead of being part of the action. This change in perspective proved to be very successful and paved the way for many other shows in the Disney parks to come. Inside the front and back covers, you can see some additional artwork that hints at what we will learn about Disneyland's history as we flip through the pages. They publish everything from picture books to young adult novels, graphic novels, and more. And every so often, they will release something special, a collector's edition, hardcover, of some of the most well-known tailies in Disney history. These books are lovingly crafted with spot gloss finishes, foil stamping, and unique cover art that really makes them stand out from the rest. Today, we are going to be looking at one of their newest releases, an oversized collector's edition of Walt Disney's The Happiest Place on Earth, the incredible story of Walt Disney's Disneyland. This book was released on September 26th of this year and is a gorgeous retrospective on the history of Disneyland Resort, which includes not only the original Disneyland, but also the many changes and expansions it has seen over the decades. Now, before we jump into the book itself, let's take a look at the packaging. It comes in. As we open the book, we are greeted by a wonderful letter from the author, Stephen Clark, who also wrote the foreword for this book. In his letter, he talks about his experience working with Disney Publishing to bring this project to life and how excited he is for readers to learn more about the resort and its history. There is also an introduction written by Imagineer Zach Ridley, who gives a bit of insight into what it is like to work for the Walt Disney Company as an Imagineer, and how the Imagineers strive to continue Walt's legacy with each new creation. The first chapter is titled More Than a Playground, and this is where the story begins. As we continue flipping through the book, another thing that I really enjoyed reading about was the process of casting the voice actors for the audio animatronic. The next chapter is titled Adventure, and this is where we learn more about the first land that guests will encounter when they enter Disneyland. Flipping through the book, we begin to see some familiar faces from the Disney animated films as we enter Fantasyland. The next chapter is all about Tomorrowland and how this futuristic land was designed to inspire awe and wonder for all who enter. The last chapter is titled The Happiest Place on Earth and takes a look at the impact that Disneyland has had on pop culture and society as a whole. The book ends with a look at how Disneyland continues to evolve and adapt to the changing times while still honoring the legacy of Walt Disney. I hope you all enjoyed this video and this first installment of our Disney Editions Book Club series.